All right, welcome back to the pre-TI team review and preview, where I go through every single team attending this year's international and review their past DPC year, as well as giving some slight insights and previews as to how well I think every team's going to be doing after going over some stats from the past year of DPC season. Next up on our list, coming in 8th place internationally, we have Team Secret, who are coming in as the #1 seed from the Western European region, a region that I think most people would argue is one of the strongest of the world right now. However, heading into this year's international, I can't really confidently say that any single team is particularly blowing me out of the water and is really like screaming at me as a huge candidate for winning this year's international. I think if one of the teams were to do it this year, despite everyone doubting them as they usually do, I think OG is probably Europe's best shot. I think Secret is #2, and I think Alliance is probably the least the team I'm least expecting to do well at this year's international. But regardless, looking now at their past year of DPC, in their first season, they start off really strong, going 7-0, finishing top of the rankings, of course, as they did not drop a single series, and they only dropped 3 individual games too, which is quite impressive. So they get themselves 500 DPC points right there, right off the bat. So already that's more than half of the points that they ended up accumulating through their whole year. And with that, they do pretty well at the first major too. I think some people might consider finishing 4th place a little bit of a disappointment, but honestly, finishing 4th place when you're playing against a whole bunch of other teams from other regions that are also incredibly well. They only finished behind PSG, LGD, Evil Geniuses, and IG. So I think that's pretty solid for a first major of the year. They finished 4th place, like I said, get themselves 350 more TPC points, and in the 4 series that they played, they won 2 and lost 2. Looking now at the second season, this is where things kind of spiral out of control for Team Secret, because we all know that pretty much for the past year and a half or 2 years before this tournament, I'd say the past year before this second season, Team Secret was unstoppable. Of course, they were only playing against other teams from the region, but no one was able to beat them. They had like a world record for amount of grand finals that they had swept completely, just 3-0. I think it was like 8 or 9 in a row that they had done. So they're on a tear, and that carried over into the first season of DPC. However, in the second season, they seem to have lost their stride a little bit as they finished 4th place. They still make it to the major because Europe has 4 slots. However, they finished with a 4-3 record, get themselves 100 DPC points. But even though they make it to the major, things don't really get better from there. They end up losing in the wildcard stage. And of course, that was a tough wildcard stage. Only 2 of the 6 teams were qualifying through. But they didn't win a single series there. They tied 4 of them and lost 1. So they finished 16th place, and they get themselves 0 DPC points off of that. Looking now at their matches against other teams attending this year's international. Starting off with season 1, obviously we have the 2 other teams from Western Europe attending. We have Alliance, who in the first season they beat 2-1, as well as OG. They also beat 2-1 in the first season. Of course, they were undefeated in that season. So notably, like I said, they had only dropped 3 games in that entire season, and 2 of which were to the 2 other teams attending this TI. The other one was to Tundra. Which was the other team that was closest to making it to this year's TI. They obviously were in the grand finals of the regional qualifiers against OG, where they were they took it to a game 5. So all 3 of the teams that managed to take a game off of Team Secret in season 1 are all 3 teams that are either attending TI or were very, very close. Next up in the Singapore major, like I said, they had won their first series against Thunder Predator in the upper bracket, where they end up meeting PSG LGD in the second round of the upper bracket. They lose that one 2-1. They go to the lower bracket and they beat, I have it down here, they beat OB Esports X Neon. But then they lose to the future champions of that major, Invictus Gaming. Now, notably, I included OB Neon on here mainly because it was a team that they played against during the main stage of the first major, which I think is a pretty important match. However, they aren't a team that is also attending TI. So I wrote it in a different color here just to clarify that it's not necessarily another team that's attending this year's international, but it is a team that I am taking account in stats when we get into the win rates and whatnot later on in the video. So yes, heading into season 2, where things kind of get off to a slow start for Team Secret. They lose actually to both other teams attending TI from their region. They lose 2-1 to Alliance, and then they get beat 2-0 by OG later after that. However, they still make it to the Animajor, like I had mentioned, where they play against only 2 other teams in that wildcard stage that actually are going to this year's TI, and that would be Vici Gaming, who they drew 1-1, and Invictus Gaming, which was the only series that they actually lost in that wildcard stage. Invictus Gaming obviously needing that win so that they could tie Team Nigma to play them in a tiebreaker to get out of that wildcard stage, which they would eventually lose. So yes, looking at the stats now, of course, these are the 25 games. I'm covering 25 games in which they went 11-14, those 25 games being all of these games here where they played against other teams from this international, as well as that one series against OB Esports that was on the main stage of the first major. So yes, like I said, they go 11-14 on Radiant. They go 7-12. They played 19 of their 25 games on Radiant. So it was very clear that Team Secret was really prioritizing picking Radiant at all cost. It didn't really seem to matter which pick order they had, as they ended up with pretty much the same amount of picks on either side. On Dire, they go 4-6. On first pick, they go 7-6, so slightly positive. But on last pick, they go 4-8. So they lost a lot more on last pick than they won. And yeah, just to clarify a little bit more, on Radiant first pick, they were 5-5. So they did pretty okay on Radiant first pick. Radiant last pick, they were 2-7. So things were really not going very well. They were 22% win rate on 9 games. Dire first pick and Dire second pick, they went 2-1 each. Looking at their game 1 records, they were 5-5. Game 2s, they were actually 3-7 in game 2s across all of these series here for a 30% win rate. And in game 3s, they were actually slightly positive with a 3-2 win-loss with a 60% win rate. In games less than 40 minutes, they go 5-10. So really, really not that great in games that were less than 40 minutes. However, as games went longer, they had a better shot at winning as they go 6-4 for a 60% win rate there. Almost double the win rate when it comes to how long these games were lasting. Looking now at their heroes, they have played a total of 70 different heroes across 25 games, which is actually very, very high. It's the highest we've seen of any team I've covered so far, which is quite impressive. It just goes to show how diverse this team was, and it gives a really clear insight as to how these guys were able to do so well for so long. So they have such a wide hero pool, they have such a wide range of strategies and whatnot that they can run effectively. I think towards the end they were kind of maybe spreading themselves a little thin, where they were just kind of trying new things and they couldn't really get a grasp of the last meta. I really think that's what it comes down to. I would be very surprised to see Team Secret get knocked out early at this year's International. I have a hard time seeing them flunk out of another major, or another LAN tournament, I should say. So in those 70 heroes that they had picked, their most played being Monkey King with 6, Mars with 5, and then Puck, Rubik, Tusk, and Death Prophet with 4 games each. Their best heroes being Coddle, who was 3-0, Tusk 3-1, and then Enchantress, Tide, and Timbersaw all being 2-0. Again, because they had played so many different heroes in not that many games, there weren't really a lot of heroes that had a particularly large amount of games. Other than their worst hero, like I said, their most played was Monkey King. He was actually their worst hero. He goes 1-5 in the games that I have counted here, as well as Warlock and Bane going 0-2, as well as Pangolier going 0-2. They're most banned by Team Secret now. They have banned a total of 67 different heroes. So like I said, very, very high for the amount of games that they had played. Timbersaw was banned 10 times, Mars was banned 9, and Puck banned 9 as well. Considering the patches that we've been having this year, that's not really a surprise. None of those heroes are very surprising to me. Most banned against, Enchantress with 11, Viper with 7, and Puck with 7. So in the 25 games that they played, Puck was banned 16 times by either team, which I thought was kind of interesting. Now looking at their roster, and of course Team Secret has a coach, a different coach that they had 2 years ago when they played in the last International. This time around they have Heen, who the furthest he has gone in an International as a coach was actually winning first place at TI7 with Team Liquid. So they have a very well-respected coach that has been coaching in the scene for such a long time and has had great success in coaching. I think Heen is one of the top 3 coaches in all of Dota. Just as a whole, I'm not necessarily speaking of right now. I don't think I can definitively say which coach is probably the best in Dota right now. But I think overall of all time in the past, I'd say like 5-6 years, Heen is up there. Of course, we have Natuma Ben playing their number 1 position, and he was on that same team in TI7 that won. That was with Team Liquid, like I mentioned. Nisha, the furthest he's gone in an International, is the same as Yapsor, which was their TI9 run where they finished 4th place, where they, of course, lost to Team Liquid. Zai, the furthest he has gone, has finished 3rd place at TI4 and TI6 with EG. Notably, he played for EG both of the Internationals around TI5, but was not actually on the team when they won in TI5. And then finally, we have Puppy, which, just like in my last video where I talked about Lanham, I think Puppy is one of the greatest players to have ever touched this game. of all time. He has played in every single international to this day. Much like Lonham, who had only missed one to this point, I decided to list out every single international that he's been to, just to kind of go back down memory lane a little bit. So starting with TI1, obviously, he wins that one with Na'Vi. And then TI2 and TI3, he finishes second place with Na'Vi, as they made it to the grand finals 3 years in a row, which was quite impressive. In TI4, he finishes 7th and 8th, as well as in TI5. However, in TI4, he was with Na'Vi, and then after which he departed and created his own organization with Team Secret, where he finished 7th and 8th at TI5 as well. TI6 was his lowest ever finishing at any international, where he finished 13th to 16th place, still with Secret. Every international since then has been with Secret, obviously. TI7, he finishes 9th to 12th. That was after getting knocked out by Liquid. TI8, he finishes 5th and 6th after being knocked out by Liquid. And then TI9, like I'd already mentioned before, he finishes 4th place after being knocked out by Liquid. So 3 years in a row, Team Secret gets knocked out by Team Liquid. And so this is the first TI in 3 years where neither the organization, Team Liquid, or the Kuroky stack are at this year's international. So you got to be thinking that Team Secret's really got nothing in their way anymore. The team that has knocked them out, been responsible for them being knocked out the past 3 TIs, is gone. So that's got to be a huge relief off his shoulders. Looking now at their team averages, they had an average GPM of 22.03, average XPM of 25.65, an average KDA of quite high at 4.22, and an average match duration of 38 minutes and 34 seconds. So yeah, that does it for all the stats for Team Secret. I gotta say, I think it is a little bit concerning that they had a little bit of a downward spiral in the back half of their DPC season this year. However, I don't really think that's anything to be worried about. If there's anything that Puppy and Team Secret has showed us over the pretty much ever since they've come into fruition, is that they are a team that is really resilient and really talented and is always destined to do very well at TI. I think that just their showing over the past year and a half of just winning endless majors and being pretty much unbeatable for all that time is really, it's unfortunate timing that they weren't able to play at an international last year, because I really think that would have been their best shot. But I think if you're a fan of Team Secret, you shouldn't really be too worried going into this year. I think they maybe just had a hard time grasping a lot of the meta in the last patch. And I don't think a lot of them were really practicing all that much around that time either. They had already technically qualified for TI at that point, so I don't think they were taking it too seriously on themselves. But you got to imagine that this year at this international, they're going to be going at it full force again. They've got a hell of a talented lineup with a lot of veterans and a lot of players, including their coach, that have won an international before, so they know what it takes. Even though I personally don't have them in my top 3 for candidates that are going to be winning this TI, I still have them very highly rated in my listing. I'm going to be doing a prediction video after I do all of the previews and reviews. But I still have Team Secret very highly up there. And if Team Secret wins, I don't think I'd be too surprised. They are still an incredible team. Just not in my top 3 at the moment, just because of the past season, which, again, can all be forgotten about if they end up doing very well at this year's international. But yeah, that's just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you think they're going to flop out just like they did in the second major? Do you think they're going to do pretty mediocre like in the second season? Or do you think they're going to absolutely stomp and show people why they are the #1 team in the world like they did for the past year and a half, 2 years now? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. As always, don't forget to subscribe. Again, I'm posting every single day until the end of TI. So pretty much for the next month from now, I'm going to be, or for the next month, I'm going to be uploading every single day. So if you don't want to miss any of that, please subscribe. I'm going to be doing a bunch of previews, reviews. Once TI actually starts, I'm going to be doing a bunch of reviews of every single series. And I'm going to be doing a bunch of fantasy stuff too, because of course this year we have fantasy coming back. So I'm going to be doing a bunch of fantasy stuff. I'm going to be doing a bunch of predictions, all sorts of stuff. So if you don't want to miss any of that, please subscribe. And I will see you guys tomorrow, where I'll be covering Vici Gaming, one of the top teams coming in from China, obviously. And so if you don't want to miss that, like I said, please subscribe. And I will see you guys tomorrow.